Welcome, third graders, to Home Learning Day 16, April 20th, 2020. I hope everyone has been having an awesome Easter vacation and really having a great time focusing on our special gift of new life. As we see in this display, all these eggs represent new life, a symbol of new life. Third graders, I emailed the list of assignments for this week to your folks. It looks just like this. And take a look at April 20th. There's our activities for today. Your priority is, of course, your math and your religion. As we move into our next math unit on geometry, we come to see that much of this learning is about vocabulary, boys and girls. And I think you're going to be really happy if you think back to when we made our measuring Santas. We talked about a lot of these terms because I knew this unit was coming up and that we needed to have some of it in our heads already. So I think if you think about some of our learning during the measuring Santas, that will help you with this. So let's refresh ourselves with a review of some of the terms. Let's review. A point is just a dot. There's a point right there. Just one particular place. Now, that's a point, that's a point, that's a point. That's all it is. A line is when you put a bunch of points, a series of points together. There's a whole bunch of them, and they just keep going straight, and there are a bunch of them all together, and before you know it, it makes a solid mass, and it just goes straight. In the math world, a line is said to go for infinity in one direction, that way, and infinity in the other direction, and that way. That means forever. So we put arrows on it to show that it goes in those directions forever. A line segment, boys and girls, is a part of a line. Segment means part. So it starts with one point, another point, another point, another point, another point, and there's little points between each one of these points too. And before you know it, just like with a line, you get something that's straight. You get that, there you go. So that's straight right there. It starts at this point, it keeps going, 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 all these little points hooked together, and it ends at this point. So this is an end point, and this is an end point. It's a line segment, just like when we form a line in a hall. We're not forming that. We're forming this, a line segment when we're getting ready for lunch. We have one student at the front and one student at the back. Okay, and I am a separate point way out here leading the pack, right? Heading to lunch, line segment. A ray is when you have one point and a line is formed going in one direction for infinity, kind of like a beam of light coming from a flashlight. Starts at the beginning of the flashlight and goes that way forever. And this is why we put this arrow on it. That means it goes that way forever. Okay, and you don't have to have a big giant point on it. The point is just a little right here. Like this is a ray going that way. This is a ray going that way. An angle is formed by either two rays that start from the same point or just two line segments. Okay, and that point that they connect with there, that's their beginning point right there. So, and there's different types of angles, and we've talked about some of those when we did our measuring Santas. Let's review those two. One type of angle is a right angle. And we can test to see if we have a right angle by putting the square corner of a piece of paper that's been cut by a paper company, and they cut them at right angles, and seeing if that fits in there perfect. These are all examples of right angles. They're also called square corners or sometimes 90-degree angles. The second type of angle is what's called an acute angle. It's an angle that is less than a square corner or 90 degrees. It's smaller in there. See how it's tighter in there, in the middle there? So and your paper cannot fit in there. And I showed you that already earlier this year, if you remember. Maybe you don't, but there you go. That's why we're going through this. Our third type of angle is called an obtuse angle, or an angle that is greater than a right angle. And you can see that in this area here, it's how it's bigger than a square corner. Like if we take our piece of paper up in there, look at that. Put it on one line and it comes way out from the edge of the piece of paper. So those are greater than a right angle, or called obtuse angles. Now, how do we tell these types of angles apart? Here are some hints. For the right angle, I think of that one as like the perfect angle, because that's the only type of angle that a piece of paper will perfectly go into. Okay, it has a square corner. An acute angle, I think, well, gee, I think of that word cute. It has that little space in between the line segments or the ray. So that's cute. It's like cute things are little often. And then obtuse. Well, obtuse means big. So that has a big, those rays or line segments have a big space that are greater than a right angle in between them. And so I can think of Mr. Hickey about how big I am compared to you guys. So I'm obtuse. And these are obtuse angles. You third graders are small. You're acute. Or like these are acute angles. And then what's perfect? Right angles are kind of like Jesus. They're perfect. They make that perfect square corner. So there you go. Hopefully you can remember those things. Boys and girls, here's some cool words. I like saying this word. Polygon. Everybody say polygon. A polygon is a closed plane figure, boys and girls. So closed means that there's no openings. See, there's no openings here in this one, and no openings here. There's an opening here, so it's not a polygon. So we're going to cross this one off. It's not a polygon. And it's made up of line segments. Now, like these are all straight line segments here. Okay. Is that a line segment? Nope, that's like a curvy thing. Nope, not a polygon. Cross that one off. And then, of course, what's that? It's a circle. Okay. Not a polygon. Okay. Now, so those are super cool. And so a polygon is a closed plane figure. Can't get into it. It's closed. It's flat. That means plane figure. That takes us down to this cool word right here called concave. So concave means that you have a little cave going in on the figure here. And this is a concave figure because this has that going into like a cave. So see the word cave? See that? Concave? So there you go. We got a prefix right there. Okay, so boys and girls, then that takes us to another cool word called convex. Now this is a convex figure because everything kind of sticks out. And convex is opposite of concave. So if you remember that concave means it has a cave and goes in, then the convex, the opposite one where everything goes out and sticks out, okay? Sometimes people refer to lenses in science as a concave lens because if you have a lens for a telescope, it might sometimes, some things may be concave, where they will have like a little cave going in, and sometimes lenses will kind of come out like that, come out like that. And this is convex. It kind of, comes out. So there you go. Those are 3 super cool words to know for geometry. Excellent. So hopefully you guys will remember those. Boys and girls, the first type of polygon that we're going to talk about is the triangle. And there are 2 ways to classify triangles: by their angles and by their sides. So you see that little symbol in there for the right angle. Whenever you have one of those in there that shows a square corner, that says that's a right angle. So that is a right triangle. And then you have triangles where all the angles are smaller than a right angle or less than a right angle. And then you have a triangle where you have one angle will be greater than a right angle. So those are the 3 types of triangles. I bet you know what these 2 are called. It's not in our book, but I can tell you. Let me tell you anyways. This is called an acute triangle because it has the little acute angles. And this has that big obtuse angle there, obtuse triangle. So 3 types of angles in our triangle. So 3 types of triangles based on their angles. And then sides. Now, these have some big words, and those are this is your challenge. Find out what you call these. These right here, when you have these marks like this, that means these sides are the same length. So you have triangles that have the same length sides. You have triangles where you have 2 sides the same length, and the other one is not. And then you have triangles where all the sides are different lengths. So your challenge is, what do you call that? What are the names of those? So our book doesn't really talk about that, but that's something for you kids that like to have a little challenge there. So you're going to have to use some of this information on your assignment. Boys and girls, these are the names of different types of polygons. Polygons are closed plane figures, and each one of these is a closed plane figure, but they're different. And we can look at the parts of these words, like when we look at prefixes and suffixes and root words, that the parts have meanings within themselves. So let's take a look here at what some of these word parts mean to help us remember these words. So we already talked about triangle. So triangle means 3 angles. So tri means 3. Quad means 4. So quadrilateral, lateral means sides, 4 sides. Pentagon means, penta means 5. It's a 5-sided figure. God means figure, I believe. Hex means 6. 6-sided figure. 8. Octa means 8. 8-sided closed plane figure. And then, of course, deca means 10. So that's a closed plane figure with 10 sides. So those words won't only help you with geometry, they will help you with many different things in life where those parts of the word will be put on other words as prefixes or used in different ways. So that's why our word work for this week and maybe next week too is mixed in right with math. It's all integrated together. So really work hard at chunking some of these words that are on your list and break them down by the meanings, the parts of the words. And if you need to break it down by smaller sound chunks, go ahead. But there you go, a little math and a little bit of word work mixed together. Now don't forget to do your daily language review, boys and girls. I think you can handle this. Your mom and dad won't have, or brothers and sisters have any troubles with helping you with this. The only one that I want to remind you of is right here, okay, the Irish wear green on St. Patrick's Day. There's a tricky one right here. Of course, we're going to capitalize the beginning of this sentence. Irish, that's a name of a special group of people that come from Ireland. That should be capitalized, of course. Wear green on St. Patrick's Day. Of course, that's going to be capitalized. Saint with a period there at the end. Patrick will be capitalized. And whose day is it? It's Patrick's Day, St. Patrick's Day. So that apostrophe has to go right between the K and the S to show that he possesses that day. And of course, then day should be capitalized also because it goes with, that's all one day. And then of course, period at the end. That's a declarative sentence that tells us information. It's a statement. Boys and girls, let's take a look at John 20, 19 through 31. We'll read it out of our children's Bible. There it is. John 20, 19 through 31. Boy, that's a lot of reading. Okay, well, I want you to write a question for this, so I better read it to you. Hopefully it's your questions. Remember, most of you always write 3 teacher-type questions like you're writing a quiz for students. So please do that, and we can talk about that. Send it to me, like I said another time, and I'll send you guys back a nice little quiz. So let's get reading this. Jesus appears to his disciples. It was late on Saturday evening, and the disciples were gathered together behind locked doors because they were afraid of the Jewish authorities. Then Jesus came and stood among them. "Peace be with you," he said. After saying this, he showed them his hands and his side. The disciples were filled with joy at seeing the Lord. Jesus said to them again, "Peace be with you. As the Father sent me, so I send you." Then he breathed on them and said, "Receive the Holy Spirit. If you forgive people's sins, they are forgiven. If you do not forgive them, they are not forgiven." Jesus and Thomas. One of the 12 disciples, Thomas, called the twin, was not with them when Jesus came. So the other disciples told him, "We have seen the Lord." Thomas said to them, "Unless I see the scars of the nails in his hands and put my fingers on those scars and my hand in his side, I will not believe." A week later, the disciples were together again indoors, and Thomas was with them. The doors were locked, but Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." Then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here and look at my hands. Then reach out your hand and put it in my side. Stop your doubting and believe." Thomas answered him, "My Lord and my God." Jesus said to him, "Do you believe because you see me? How happy are those who believe without seeing me." In his disciples' presence, Jesus performed many other miracles which are not written down in this book, but these have been written in order that you may believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that through your faith in him, you may have life. Now, a few reminders as you continue celebrating this Easter season, boys and girls. At our last video conference meeting, I asked kids to put up their Alleluias somewhere in their house. So hopefully those are up by now. I put that on your list of things to do today. And make sure your homework lives in your backpack. It comes out and visits, and you work on it, and it goes back in there. Put the completed work inside your take-home folder, like we would do it at school, and your assignments to do, put them in the assignment folder. I hope to see your work one time, and we'll refer back to it as we're working through some of these things. If you have any questions, please, have your parents contact me, and then I can work with you through a video conference or a phone call or something like that. And remember, school isn't over. It's just different now. We're just doing it, online, these videos, doing the video conferencing, and it's not over. We have a lot of learning to do. So have a great attitude towards learning. And enjoy it the way it is, and really focus on that math. That math is something you really need to do. I know you're all reading, so I don't really have to say anything about that. And then make sure that you do your religion. That math, reading, religion, those are the top ones, and you get to some of the other fun subjects too then after you get those done. Those are your priorities, boys and girls. You can do it. And as always, boys and girls, go Zephyrs!